Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Inside the Club. I'm Belle Fraser, Utah Hockey Club beat reporter for the Salt Lake Tribune, and I am joined by the 3 other beat reporters for Utah Hockey Club. We're going to do somewhat of a roundtable answering fans' questions today, but I'll let everyone introduce themselves. We can start with Ryan.
Hello, I'm Ryan. I cover the team for KSL.com, and it's a good time. Woo, go hockey.
Cole.
I'll jump on. Yeah, I'm Cole Bagley. I cover the team for KSL Sports, which is different from Ryan, but we're not going to talk about that today. But it's a good time. So, like Ryan said, go hockey.
I'm Brogan Houston. I'm from the Deseret News, which is also kind of related to Cole and Ryan's companies, but also kind of different. And none of us understand how it works. But, we're just having fun and go hockey.
Go hockey. Yeah. So, usually at practices, we're all sitting together and we talk and answer these questions amongst ourselves. So we thought it would be a good idea just to get on and air it out to the public. I think that's one of the most fun parts of the job is just catching up with you guys and sharing our crazy hockey takes. So this should be fun. I have a list of fan questions that we collected from Twitter, and we can just jump right into it so we have enough time to answer all of them. The first one, I think we'll get the name questions out of the way because I think a lot of us have done a lot of reporting on the name as of late, but this comes from Clean Hits. It's a 2-parter. Number 1, what's your favorite team nickname from any phase of voting, all the way back to the initial poll? And 2, what's your favorite team nickname that was never on any of the polls?
Belle, why don't you jump in? You start us off.
This is such a boring answer, but I truly never fully cared a lot. I just wanted fans to be happy, and I thought it was cool people were voting. So I think before I liked Yeti just because it seemed like that was the vibe everyone was going for, and I didn't have anything wrong with it. So I guess Yeti, and then now I think I like Mammoth the best, but I also like the concept of Outlaws. I just don't know if it fully matches the colors and the branding of Utah. But yeah, my answer is boring because I honestly wasn't thinking about it a lot until all of the voting and such came around the last month or so. But I would say go away from Utah Hockey Club just so you can be more respected around the league from visiting fans.
I'll jump in. We wrote a story on this in April when this first broke. Every one of our sports writers threw their favorite one in. Mine was either the Bears or the Eagles because just a homage to the former teams here. I think Golden Eagles would have been awesome. I think with the Golden Knights, that might have been a little weird to have 2 Golden teams come in the last decade. But I would have been fine with just keeping it simple. I've always been kind of on board with all sports team names are stupid until you just get used to hearing them. And I think we've seen that over the process. Utah Yetis kind of sounded weird to some people. Now they're just so used to it. Mammoth, same thing. So those were my favorites leading in. Yeah, go. I've always liked Hockey Club. I know I'm on an island on that a lot of the times. I thought it was interesting initially. I'm kind of leaned away from that now, but I would be fine with any 3. But yeah, I think Hockey Club's unique enough that it'd be kind of fun.
I think the one that didn't get into the mix that I think would have been so clean, so nice is the Utah Wagon. And I know I've talked to you guys about it before, but
I feel like that.
Maybe some of you guys haven't heard. Just that Utah obviously has such a rich pioneer history and whatnot, and then you're a bandwagon, like a wagon kind of thing. I just think that would be so nice, but it's not gonna happen.
I have to say, Mammoth definitely is my favorite. I'm kind of with Bell on that. I feel like it goes with the branding a lot better. I like the idea of Outlaws, but with the direction that they've headed with embracing the mountains and the snow and all that, I think Mammoth just fits into that more cleanly. And then one that I don't know if it was ever on the poll or anything like that, but I think Utah Raptors would have been kind of cool.
I like that.
Utah's history of dinosaurs, and Vemelka has a really nice mask with some raptors on it and whatnot. I think that would have been cool. But I think at this point we're all just ready for them to name the team so we can move.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I am so done with this. Looking through trademarks, everything. Also, fun fact, guys. I don't know if anyone else has looked at yet. They have not canceled, like, they went and renewed or did an extension for Mammoth and Utah Hockey Club yesterday. So we're not going to see which one they're favoriting yet. But in the process, they went and extended every other name that was up for them, too. So we got, like, Utah Blast or whatever. I don't remember them. But, like, so
You
they're
never
just
know.
throwing money at these trademark people for no reason at this point. But whatever. It's fine. I'm done. Let's name the team.
Tusks up, everyone. The follow-up question to that from someone else was, when will we hear team name results? Again, the timeline is the same. They said they're going to wait until the end of the season. It will be Utah Hockey Club until the regular season ends, or if they make a playoff run, who knows? They're not going to announce it until before the 2025-26 season. So probably sometimes this summer, maybe ahead of the draft, maybe after. We don't have an exact timeline, but they're not changing that.
I wouldn't be
I heard
shocked
it
if
would
they
be
just.
before the draft.
Sorry?
Pretty sure I heard that. I'm
Oh,
pretty
did
sure
you?
I heard
Okay.
that it would be before the draft, but
I think I've heard that they're just going to use the draft to announce it, but
Should make a
I
lot of
think
sense, right?
It
yeah,
would.
Like to have these new players come in and be able to say, you're an outlaw, you're a mammoth, or you're a
You're a
clubber,
mammoth.
like whatever, you know?
Oh, that's actually hilarious.
I think they should just like if I wouldn't be shocked. I know we're still talking about the dang name, but like if they use Utah Hockey Club and then just use one of these like the Mammoth logo, even if that's like close enough one too, but. We'll see. We're never going to actually see the results, so they'll just announce what they want, and it'll be great and wonderful. I'm glad the fans had fun.
Yep.
and as long as I don't have to write Utah Hockey Club in my articles anymore, because that's the most pain in the butt team name to write, because there's no like real good short version of it. So you
The
either have to do
club.
like Utah HC or like something like that. So Oli Mata told me I'm a big baby for saying that. My words, not his, but he gave me a big long argument about European teams and college teams and stuff. But I don't know. I think
Good
I
point.
think I just want to write Utah team name rather than Utah Hockey Club.
Very
Takes
fair.
up a lot of the headline.
It
It
does.
does.
It does. Okay. Are we good on the name things?
Yes.
Okay. Next up was, what is everyone's plan for Four Nations break? The reporters and players. Guys, any fun plans?
I
My parents are
do.
coming to town.
Let's hear it.
I'm actually traveling with the Jazz this weekend. So, Belle, I know you're in Columbus. I will be, because for those that don't know, I also cover the Utah Jazz mostly. That's my real job. And so I'll be in LA with them. And then I'm just going to stick around LA and swing down to San Diego during the Four Nations / All-Star break. And I love how they both worked out together. So, yeah, it's been nice. It'll be nice.
Brogan, your parents are coming?
Yeah, my parents are coming, and then also my mother-in-law and brother-in-law are also coming, and we didn't coordinate that. That just kind of like happened to happen at the same time, and both sides were planning on coming at the same time. So we'll have a pretty full apartment here in our one bedroom.
I was going to ask, is everyone staying with you?
No, they're not.
Okay.
But
Oh, gosh.
yeah, I'm sure everybody will stop by, and we'll probably do some dinners here and whatnot. So yeah.
I'll be headed down to St. George for about a week, just get into some warmer weather, take my two boys down there, and just not think about hockey for a couple of days. But then, of course, watch some international hockey because it's been a while since we've seen talent like this represent Canada and USA, Sweden, Finland. So kind of exciting, but it'll be a nice break to recharge a little bit before we get into the final stretch.
Yep. I, like Ryan, actually, will be in California for like a couple days. Poorly planned because I'm coming from DC and I thought I would be coming from Utah. So just flying cross country for fun. But then I'll be back in Boston going home, and I'll have coverage of Four Nations like Cole was talking about, the last 3 games at TD Garden. So that lined up well and kind of goes into what players are doing over this break. Juuso Välimäki and Olli Maatta will be representing Team Finland at the Four Nations face-off. First time this has happened, so pretty exciting for them. And then all the other players, I think they have close to, 8 days off with no practice. They're back practicing at the Olympic Oval on February 18th before they leave for LA against the Kings. So, I mean, you guys can chip in, but from what I've heard, players are going to a beach, somewhere warm, somewhere far away from hockey. Like Cole was saying, as we all need the mental reset, I think the players need it 10 times more. So it seems like they are going on nice vacations, which if I had an NHL contract, I would also do. Hit the Caribbean.
Yes, Stenlin's headed back to Florida. I think he's going to go hang out with some of his Panther buddies down there because it's Fort Lauderdale. Why wouldn't you? And where did Kesselring say he was going?
He's like somewhere warm.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'm out of here. Michelli said he's going to a beach too, didn't specify, but
Utah Lake.
yeah, the Great Salt Lake. Get a tan at the Great Salt Lake. Anyone else have insight on that, or shall we move on?
I got nothing.
Okay.
I forgot to ask you guys, so sorry.
I mean, it's been like the least important thing,
Yeah.
to be fair for us, but
I think Josh Stone is just going back home. I think he's just going down to Arizona.
that
I
makes
think he
sense.
said he's going back to get his dog.
Oh yeah,
His
Hank.
dog's not with him. Yeah.
Aw. Oh yeah, because I guess when he got called up, he had to leave right from the bus. You can't pack the dog. That'll be good. Okay, next question was, any idea when they will put the jerseys on the online team store? Cole, I feel like you're the go-to for this type of stuff. You're always on it. Do you know this?
Are they talking about the new Stitch jerseys or just the general jerseys?
I think in general, because before it was only like Keller, Schmaltz, and such. But
I mean, I'm drawing on this one.
yeah.
They just barely got. From what I've been told, they have thousands at the team store. Like this is their biggest haul that they've had, all season. So, they are. You can go to the Delta Center and get either stitched, which is a new update. Before they were just heat pressing them, but now they've got them directly coming from Fanatics. Not every player is available, but they've got a lot of the big names: Keller, Cooley, Gunther, Schmaltz. I think there were some Vamelka, some Kesselring, and they're actually stitched, which is it's a little bit better. I think they're $25 more, so they run $275. They still do offer blanks, and they still do offer the heat press. But in terms of online, I don't know that they've officially said when they'll become available, but I would assume soon because they have thousands of these things in stock.
Yeah, I'm confused by that because I'm online right now and looking at jerseys. Do they?
Oh.
Yeah.
I know they're on Fanatics. Maybe like Utah has their own. I don't know.
Well, I clicked from the Utah shop and it just took you to the NHL one. So I don't know. But yes, you can buy them online. So go for it, people.
Okay,
It
great.
looks like there's a limited quantity of white jerseys available. There's a bunch of kids ones. And this is all on the Utah Hockey Club team store. And some of the sizes are already sold out. And I don't know that you're able to customize them yet online. But there are some available at the Utah Hockey Club team store website.
So lesson is everyone should just come to Delta Center.
And you won't get the patches too. That was what they were very clear on, is they want to have like the special stuff for the or for the in-store stuff. So maybe that's what they're asking about. I don't know. But yeah, they're available, widely available at this point. They're everywhere at the Delta Center right now.
Okay, now let's get into some hockey questions. A lot of questions about trade deadline and free agency, so we'll just answer one or two, and hopefully that encapsulates everything people were wondering about. One person said, rumors are that Utah will be big game hunting with free agency. How big and what positions do you think they will be targeting?
I can jump in on this one. I was actually just looking at a bunch of free agency stuff today, and I made a list of all the pending free agents that I think Utah might be interested in. One of them, and it doesn't necessarily fill a specific position that they need, but generally they could use more depth at this position. Is Jack Quinn, a center from Buffalo. He played under Andre Tourigny in Ottawa for the 67s in the OHL there, and he's an 8th overall pick, I think. So he's supposed to be, probably a bona fide first line kind of guy, and he's been, maybe first, second line the last couple of years, but he hasn't really had that true breakout. And he's up for RFA this year, so it would have to be either a trade or an offer sheet. But I wonder if that's a guy that they're, maybe considering, just given his history with the coach and his potential to break out and to really become, a real player.
Yeah, there's some more insight as well from David Pignato, the fourth period in the NHL Network. Actually just appeared on a podcast yesterday. He reported that looking ahead to the deadline, that they're going to see if they can make some significant additions now. If it doesn't work out, they're essentially just trying to lay some groundwork to kind of go big game hunting this summer. They're obviously still hopeful to make the playoffs this year, but it's tough. I think they need to win about 19 of the final 29 games left to really have a shot to get up to that 95 point benchmark, which is essentially about how many points on average you have to have in order to get into the playoffs. But if they're unable to do so, McDonough likes Utah's chances to go and get guys like Mikko Rantanen or Mitch Marner this offseason who are going to be some big pending free agents if they do kind of become available. He thinks that he said directly that they're at the top of Utah's list, and Utah does have a lot of cap space, especially with those new extensions coming. I wouldn't be shocked if I'm not saying Utah's going to get them by any means, but I do think that they're going to be in the mix to try to bring in one of those players.
And
Like, well,
Utah, they're in like a weird position too, because like if you look at their younger players are the ones that have been kind of like carrying the offensive load this season, Keller, and then got Cooley and Gunther, and you have a Kerfoot, he's unrestricted, right? And then Busted's unrestricted. I feel like there's one other I'm forgetting that's
Vemelka.
Carconi. Yeah, and so it's like you have that one's a goalie. We'll talk about that. But like I do think that there's some forward spots to be filled um, from these like veteran guys that you almost expected to have a little bit more production than you've had this season. So like that would be an easy replacement, I guess. You could swing those guys in and suddenly you are in theory ready to roll.
Yeah, and I also think, just everyone's mentioned it, but the cap space Utah has right now, according to Puckpedia, our great friend Puckpedia, since all the other ones got taken down, Utah's current cap space of just over 15 million, but a projected cap space by the end of the year of over 5 million. So they have money to spend. And I think we can get into the question. Someone actually asked this question about free agents wanting to come to Utah, but they're not bound by, oh, we need to squeeze the numbers to make this work, especially because Bill Armstrong 2 to 3 years ago signed, players like Kerfoot and Bukestad and guys who could be key parts of this team to only 2 to 3 year contracts. So with all of those expiring, then you're clearing the books even more, and we can talk about trade deadline, what contracts you might get rid of then. I was talking to Ryan, Matias Michelli's making more than Barrett Hayton right now and has not been a big producer on this team, is, currently scratched in the game against Columbus. So I think for them, it's really whatever they can finagle with convincing people to come to Utah and why they want to be part of this team. I think in terms of position, we talk about center depth a lot. How on, a Stanley Cup winning team, Hayton's probably not your first line center, or Alex Kerfoot's probably not your first line center. Maybe Jack McBain is your fourth line center. So I think that's interesting, but also they have so many prospects that could fill that gap in a few years. And Bill Armstrong is a very patient man, more patient than I think reporters or fans are. So I don't think he's worried about that. But I think what this team talks about a lot is just a goal scorer, like ice in your veins goal scorer, like Dylan Gunther, like Logan Cooley, because some of their go-tos haven't been able to do that this year. So I wonder if they look for something like that. And then defensively, if they could stay healthy, I mean, it feels like they have everything they need there, especially with Lamoureux in the AHL proving what he's done. So I would say it's going to have to do with free agency market and willingness to come to Utah, and also just health this summer. I guess that transitions into the free agent question, if you guys want to touch on that. Someone asked, with the Jazz, it's historically been harder to get NBA free agents to come to Utah, and if they think that's going to be any different with the NHL, and if players are going to want to come to Utah, because in, interviews when they come here, they talk about how the Delta Center looks cool and the facilities are cool. They think that'll carry over to them actually wanting to play here. Ryan, you cover the Jazz, you've covered free agency, you're covering a trade deadline right now. Why do you think NBA free agents have been harder to come to Utah, and why do you maybe think that would change or wouldn't change for the NHL?
I think we all know the reasons. It's Salt Lake City. It's predominantly white. The NBA is a predominantly black league. Not a lot of fun things to do downtown. At least what a young black man might want to do, or even a young white man might want to do. So, yeah. So but I had an interesting conversation with the higher up at SEG before the season ever began, and his name may or may not be the same as mine. Read between the lines. That he He told me that he believes that this could be a top 5 free agency market in the NHL. And he didn't even say he doesn't think he could be. He says it is a top 5 free agent market in the NHL. I don't think they're there yet by any means, and I don't know if they ever will be. There's a reason New York's New York. People still want to be warm. Like I think there's a lot of things that the same reason the NBA is not really coming here as a big attraction, same reason the NHL won't come here. But there's also a lot of people from Canada who's used to cold, who's grown up in this climate, who doesn't really care about being in that big market. And honestly, if we're looking at a real big difference, you can make a lot more money in the NBA in LA. Like you can look at Luka Doncic right now, just got traded from the Mavericks. Dallas is a massive market. Luka's a massive international person. He's going to make more money in LA just with everything else. And so I don't know if you have that much of as big of a pull in the NHL that way where you're going to be a Ranger, you're going to be this world-renowned player any more than you are in Utah. So I think that might be something that could be to Utah's advantage, that you don't need to be these big markets to really sell these guys, because there might not be as much of a benefit to being in those big markets. So, but yeah, there's belief in the SEG world, at least in the ownership, that this will be a free agent player.
Yeah,
Bell, you mentioned this a little bit that we've talked to a lot of these opposing players as they come through, and I don't think I've heard a bad thing from any of them about Utah. We ask, a good chunk of them, hey, what do you think of Utah so far? And what do you think of the facility and the city and all that? And everybody seems to have positive opinions. Maybe they're just being nice, but it seems genuine at least.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever going to get anyone saying negative stuff in our interviews, though. Like, I've talked to 1,000 NBA players, and it's like, Utah is great. But yeah, no one's. It's true. It is a very real thing that free agents are going to come here. Like, your Jazz are going to have to build through the draft, through trades. It's just how it is. And who knows why, really? Like, there's 1,000 other reasons, but yeah, I do think we'll see. I think this summer will be big if they really can get meetings with guys more than anything. Not even signing them. Even if they can get in those conversations, that will show that'll show where Utah is in the NHL landscape.
And I think building off of what Ryan was saying, like if you think of the top players in the NHL, even over years past, I mean, right now, right, like Nathan McKinnon plays in Denver, Colorado. And, even if you're talking about a guy like Sidney Crosby, he's playing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or Connor McDavid is in Edmonton. Like, I think, yeah, that big market appeal isn't quite as much there. I mean, I'm sure there's guys that still would prefer to play in New York or play in Boston or play in
Sure.
LA, but I don't think as much, like, to your point, Ryan, and as well, the upbringing of a lot of these guys. There's a lot of guys from Europe. There's a lot of guys from Canada. I think Salt Lake, and Utah are very similar to places that they grew up in. It's just a different culture in the NHL. These guys are rink junkies. Like they eat, sleep, and drink, hockey, and I don't think they're as concerned about nightlife per se. And yeah, of course, guys are not going to diss the place that they're at, but conversations I've had with Ian Cole, Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther. I mean, these guys. Logan Cooley told me that this is the most amount of joy that he's had in his career in the NHL, which isn't very long, but that's something that you like to hear from a guy that's coming up, for a big extension, and hopefully is a player that might have a statue outside of Delta Center one day. But I just think there's a lot more appeal to Utah in terms of the NHL than there is the NBA, and especially now with this new ownership group. These guys care. They're building world-class facilities. Delta Center's getting upgrades. Like, it's so much different than it was in Arizona. I think it's going to help Utah, pull in big free agents compared to, what the Jazz have been able to do.
To add to that, Cole, I think your point about ownership is a really big thing, and it's something I was saying to you guys. I was actually talking to Bill Armstrong about this morning. How, when a player signs a contract or chooses what team he goes to, he's not just choosing it for himself, it's for his wife and his kids or his future wife and kids. You're choosing where to live your life. And he said that with Smith Entertainment Group, and their goal right now is to take care of everybody. Of course, players are at the forefront, but they want the friends and family to have great experiences at Delta Center, to have the lounge and have food and have the mom's trip and the mentor trip, and just to take care of the person as a whole and not just, oh, they have good skates and enough sticks and good equipment. So I think that's really part of it too. It's the experience of being in the Utah Hockey Club community, not just as an athlete, but as a human being. They're really trying to make that one of the best in the league. So I think that'll be kind of a big part as well, when you look at guys wanting to, spend their life here, even if it's not hockey.
Yeah, and
And
to go off of that a little bit, there's like as I said, it will seem big if they can just get in these conversations. Because honestly, if I've talked to a lot of people, yes, some Jazz players have had bad experiences here, and that's like Donovan Mitchell did. Like, just to be fair, you can like people got mad at it and don't like hearing about it. He had some negative experiences here, but for the most part, that's an outlier. Like, I've talked to like Mike Conley, who absolutely loved his time here, who Derek Favors absolutely loved his time here. You can go down the list. Like, people really love it. Rudy Gobert still has a house. Like, people like this place once they get here. And so that's why it's such a key to, like, if you actually get into the conversation, because that's really where the Jazz aren't right now.
Hmm.
Like these marquee free agents, you're not even in the ballpark. And maybe Ryan Smith can change that, because to your point, Bell, I would say that his biggest um I guess superpower as an owner is player experience. Like, that is what he cares about more than probably anything else right now, is getting these guys a comfortable place. And that's on both sides. Like, they went and revamped everything on the hockey side, obviously, for the Delta Center today or this year. And what did they do? The exact same thing for the basketball side. And so that is where he, I think, really will appeal to a lot of players, is that, like, yeah, this guy is going to take care of you. He did it in 3 months for a new team. Think what you can do in a year type thing. He'll throw money at it. And so I think that will be appealing to a lot of players.
And
And going
quickly,
off of that as well, we were talking before we started recording about the athletic player poll, and these guys. This is a poll of, I think it's around 100 NHL players, and they take guys from all different markets and stuff, and they ask them who would you least like to play for, most like to play for, who has the best and worst facilities, all that kind of stuff, and it's all anonymous, so they don't have to worry about their opinions getting out or anything. And Utah was pretty high up on the list of best facilities. So that's a good sign, like you're saying, Ryan, for player experience. If guys are looking around the league during their road trips and saying, "Oh, I like this place, I don't like that place," they might see something they like in Utah, and maybe that makes them more inclined to sign here.
quickly to close this one out too, I agree with that, and I think they see around the league just the stability Utah has now. I can see as a free agent why you might not want to sign in Arizona, play there for a season, if the team's going to move, if the players there don't know what's going on, there's a lot of stress around it. But I think the fact that you would move to Utah and actually be part of growing this identity for the NHL there, I think players are excited about it because they obviously love the game more than anything else. And it's probably an attraction to be like, I can be part of making it a significant part of this community. And they're coming out of the rebuild. I know this team has had a lot of struggles this season, and you see the youth and the holes that they still have, but it's not like guys are signing with a team that's going to have 4 more years of missing the playoffs. I think Utah's on an upward trajectory here on out. And, you look at someone like Mikhail Sergachev, who's used to winning Stanley Cups, and he's excited to be part of the foundation in Utah. So I think that's part of it too. If you get a big free agent signing, they're going to be the face on the Delta Center wall next year. They're not going to be a small part of this puzzle. And a lot of players, I know it's not about themselves, but that's pretty cool. Like, you can be a really big part of this team taking the next step. So anyways, we spent a lot of time on that question, so we'll move on. But is everyone good on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any updates on the Delta Center renovations for the first round coming spring and summer? All I've heard is that it'll start when the season ends. They have not given us any, literal, like, this is the wall we're knocking down. These are the seats we're adding. I think they're more like, let's focus on the season now. When it ends, we'll figure it out because they have 1,000 things on their plate. I don't know if you guys have heard anything different.
Yeah, I reached out, it was probably like a month ago, but at this point, was doing a story on something else, but it involved that, and because I just wanted to get some updates on it, and they said No, we don't have anything finalized.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Say it.
Probably 3 4 weeks ago, I asked a high up executive at SEG, and he said whatever Ryan Smith has said is what we're sticking with right now. So I think that's as
Yeah,
much as they'll tell us.
you can read between the lines. Like Ryan Smith has talked about like having VR tours through it first to see sightlines. So I would assume they have things pretty set now. But yeah, they probably won't release anything to us until the end of the season, is what I would guess.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the name reveal and the next, set of jerseys and stuff. Like they just want to focus on the inaugural season, get through it, and then, they can start, sharing what all these future plans are.
Yep. All right. Easy enough. Next one is, who do you think gets traded this season / doesn't re-sign? And maybe aside from the more obvious, how about the 4 signed right defensemen? Does Mavlam spend another season jumping up and down?
I've got an answer to that last one.
All right.
So Tournier was talking about this maybe a week or two ago, that you need more than just your top 6. Like your top 6 is good on paper, but you never ever ever have a game where you have all top 6 healthy, or all 12 forwards healthy. So I do think it's a good problem to have, that you have 4 signed right shot D, and I'll add Nick DeSimone in there as well. He's a pending
Unsung
UFA, but
hero, Nick DeSimone, coming in and saving
I
Utah
do think
Hockey
he
Club.
deserves a contract next year, maybe even a raise if I can be that bold. So I wonder if he'll be back. And so I think that kind of gives you some stability, so that when the injuries do hit, like they did this year, you're not all of a sudden scrambling and saying, oh, who's available, maybe overpaying for a guy that you could have gotten for cheaper, in free agency or later in the season or something. So it's good to have those. Maverick Lamoureux, like he's played 15 NHL games. He was good, but he wasn't necessarily like the type of guy that was proving that he belongs to be in the NHL permanently and long term. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to keep him in the AHL just for, another half season, maybe a full season. And then, at that point you reevaluate and see where he goes. But I think that those 4 right D are not going anywhere, and they might even add 1 or 2 more.
Yeah, with Lamoureux, I would just echo what Brogan said. I think, if you look at, a guy like Josh Doan, it's a guy who they thought was ready at the beginning of the year. They, weren't exactly happy with his production through 9 games. They sent him back down. He was down for around 20 games. He's come back. It looks like he's now here to stay potentially. He's been a lot better, and I would kind of anticipate the same thing with Maverick Lamoureux. I think he should remain in Tucson through the remainder of the year. I wouldn't be shocked if he starts in Tucson next season. Maybe he continues to kind of do the jump up game if there are injuries. That's kind of your guy that you can go to. But yeah, don't be surprised if we can, if maybe for the next year we're seeing similar things from Lamoureux until maybe, the start of the 2026-27 season. Maybe that's when he's fully ready to go and begin with Utah from day one, especially considering there's more defensive prospects coming. There's a guy named Simashev who's very good at hockey, a similar build to, I think, a big guy. And they're doing well defensively.
I'll also add that I was listening to the Spit and Chicklets podcast with Jim Nill. They had him as a guest, and for those of you that don't know, Jim Nill is the back-to-back GM of the year. So really respected hockey mind. He's won the Stanley Cup 4 times, big hockey guy. And he was saying there's no such thing as spending too much time in the minors for a young kid. So if Maverick has to stay there for another 1-2 seasons, I think that can only be good for his development, as far as you can trust Jim Nill, who I would trust him a lot more than me.
And I think that's something Bill Armstrong really believes in too. Like you look at Dylan Guenther, didn't start the season in the NHL last year, and then a year later he signs an 8-year extension for $50+ million. And same with Josh Doan. Like I think a lot of us wouldn't have second guessed it if Doan stayed up for the whole season instead of going to the AHL, but he marinated down there and he's a lot better for it. So I think that's a belief this organization has too. Just going to the first part of the question, who do you think could get traded this season or doesn't re-sign? Just looking at production and who this team has utilized and not utilized, sadly, I mean, again, we're reporters, nothing is against the person. It's more just player and performance. But I look at a guy like Matias Michelli or Vladislav Kolyachonok, who are on the outside looking in sometimes, and Michelli specifically, he's getting, I think he's the fourth or fifth highest paid forward. He's making more. Yeah, he's making $3,425,000 a year, which is more than Barrett Hayton, which I didn't realize. So I think when you look at production per pay, he's not hitting that right now. And I think it's obviously not a one-for-one trade, but that is a player that you could trade based off of, projected talent and what he could be, and something that you could put in a package that might push it over the edge to get a bigger name if he and Vlad and someone else were in a package. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think that's maybe a player that Utah would feel okay parting ways with, where you're probably not going to trade a Josh Stone, obviously not going to trade a Cooley or Gunther. And then when you look at your older guys, you're probably not going to trade Lawson Krause, who's an associate captain, who I believe, probably has a lot left to his game. And then Bukestad and Kerfoot are unrestricted, so you can't trade them after the deadline. So I think when you look at the forward group, that's probably who would make the most sense. I don't know if they want to, because I know they have invested a lot in Michelli. And then, defensively, Valimaki too. Like we've talked about Nick DeSimone, he's really stolen the job from Valimaki and Kolechonik right now. So those are the guys that I think Utah is probably most comfortable, wouldn't have big regrets on, but who knows? I think it also depends who they're going after in the market. And then who doesn't re-sign. I see them really trying to re-sign Jack McBain, obviously trying to extend Cooley. Alex Kerfoot has been really great for this team this year. I could see them maybe trying to do low term for him. Nick Bukestad, though, I don't know if they feel like they need to, just based on this season. So that's kind of where we are now, 50-plus games into the season. That's how I view it. I don't know about you guys.
I'll add Robert Bortuzzo to that as well. I think Bortuzzo's probably set to retire at the end of the year. I would think he's been hurt most of the year and whatnot. So I would think that he's out, and maybe they look at another Bortuzzo-like guy to come in, maybe like an Alec Martinez or somebody like one of those veteran defensemen on expiring deals that can just come in and, be a good guy that takes guys out on the road and, has somebody stay at their house the way that Bortuzzo's doing with Lamoureux and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it just depends. They have a month to figure out if they're going to try to make the playoffs or fall back in. Because, they don't have any bad contracts, which is good. Got a lot of unrestricted guys. So it's like they have a lot of, say they go and lose the next 6 or whatever, and like, okay, this ain't happening. You probably are going to start looking at those unrestricted just to save some money, drop down in the standings a little more, play the whole game.
Yeah,
here's a question. Go ahead, Cole.
I was going to say, I'd keep an eye on some of those, more veteran guys whose contracts are expiring, especially if this team is not going to push for the playoffs. You might have teams that are looking for some rentals, some veteran experience that they, if they've got injuries or whatever. Guys like Ian Cole or Oli Miner, you said Kerfoot, that happens a lot in the NHL where people just need somebody for the last couple months of the season to, add some veteran depth as they enter the playoffs. Not saying there's anything there, but just keep an eye on those guys as, if Utah ends up moving somebody, that's who I would, probably expect to have a greater chance.
Yeah, that's a good point, Cole, especially if, like Ryan said, they lose the next 3 or whatever after 4 Nations too. They know they're not going to make playoffs, and they're pretty convinced that they aren't going to re-sign those guys in the summer. Any team would rather get a return, even if it's prospects or picks, instead of just having a guy walk. So yeah, Bill Armstrong said it a couple weeks ago. This team is going to determine if they're buyers or sellers. The players, it's really in their hands to determine what this team needs. So the next few weeks will be very telling. Another unrestricted free agent, Karel Vejmelka, and we can get into some goalie talk, because one of the questions was, do you think it's fair to the goalies to have an every other game rotation as it seems to be going? Would it benefit them to have more of a set 1 and 2? And then another question tied to that was, if it came down to it and we had to drop one of our current goaltenders, would you keep Vejmelka, as he has been a little hotter this year, or would you opt to trade Veggie near the trade deadline for some possible picks and players? So take your pick at the questions. I'm just kind of categorizing them, but yeah.
But going back, the Veggie one, the last one, there is the same conversation. Like, if they're not in it, you probably are you going to resign him? Who knows? Is he your future? I don't know. So if he's not, it makes sense to get something from him or for him. So again, it all does depend. I don't think either of them to go to the first part is like crazy hot right now, and so I think they're just kind of waiting for one of them to just pop and then ride that hot streak. Because otherwise, it's just flipping a coin, and maybe a little more games would help them get there. But I think Belle, you asked like 2 to 3 weeks ago what Andre's
He
uh,
said it is not a
philosophy was.
rotation.
He
We were like,
he
are
was
you
pretty
sure?
clear on that. Seemed pretty rotation-y, but yeah. So I think they're just probably waiting for one of them just to have to kind of get into a consistent role, and maybe that will pop them. But man, we'll see. Maybe it's just
And
fill it out until the Four Nations rolls out.
when Vemelka was starting almost every game, he was playing really, really well, like top five in a lot of
Yeah.
statistical categories. But obviously, you can't do that for a full season. We're far past the days where goalies will play 75 games in a season, which is probably what he was on pace for had he done that for the full season. And so I think that Vemelka really seems to benefit anyway from playing a lot of games. And Connor Ingram, he's kind of just been a wild card this year just because of everything that was going on in his life, and I don't know that you can judge him based on this season. I think probably previous seasons are a little more telling. Yeah.
And to be fair, I don't think either of them have been bad either. It's like the reason they're losing games really isn't because of the goalie
Yeah,
situation.
it's usually not goaltending.
They can't score, so and that was like Veggie at the beginning of the year, especially like his run support per se was so bad, and so yeah, it'll be. I don't really know what they'll end up doing, but yeah, it should be interesting.
Yeah, I don't love goalie rotation like this. I'm sure the goalies don't necessarily love it either. I think it's tough for a goalie to really get into a rhythm when it's back and forth, back and forth. But I think it's potentially just the nature of what's going on. We'll see I think this team's just trying to figure a lot of things out right now, and a lot of it is revolving around just getting through to the Four Nations break, and then when they come back, are they pushing or are they not? And then, I think maybe you'll kind of see some more consistency across all fronts through the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think too, just about what goalies prefer as well. When I talked to Ingram, he was like, yeah, whatever's best for the team. Like, we're just trying to win, the two of us. And of course, Pamelka also said that, but he led with, I want to play every night. Like, I'm so happy Connor's back and, he's my friend. I'm glad he's doing well and he's playing, but like, I want the net. He said physically he feels better when he's playing consistently because you don't have an off day and then you have to get right back into it. Obviously, they're in game shape throughout the season, but for him, he was saying he feels more confident physically and mentally when he's playing every day. And I think we saw that when he went through that stretch when Ingram had his time off, where he was arguably, one of the top three best players for Utah on a nightly basis. So I think that's good data for the team to have where when they're making this decision, they can say, okay, Vemelka could handle the workload and he actually plays better when he has a heavier workload. I think rotations are interesting because I feel like a lot of NHL teams have leaned towards splitting the net a bit more than they have in the past. Like I remember when Henrik Lundqvist was playing 75 games in a regular season and that was normal, but I think that's just not what teams do anymore. But I agree. I think going Ingram, Vemelka, it's not like Swayman and Olmark, no disrespect, but those are two, Vezina caliber goaltenders. I don't think you need to go 1-2 at all. And I agree with Ryan, maybe they're waiting to see who gets hot, but I think it's hard to get hot when you're not playing every night. So that'll be interesting. And then, yeah, quickly, I think Cole said it too. It'll all depend on if they're trying to make a push or not. And if they decide they're not making a push and that Vemelka's not the guy they're going to re-sign this summer, I could see him going at the deadline because teams are desperate at the deadline. I think you can get a lot more back in return, especially for a good goalie. When teams are trying to make it to the Stanley Cup or they're trying to make a playoff push, they might throw in another, defenseman or prospect or even just a better all-around player to get Vemelka on their roster. So that'll be interesting to see. And it really is just who they decide to go with in the future. And that we do not know.
Along that same vein, too, is Vemelka, this is a topic of conversation, is Vemelka the top possibly available goalie at the deadline? Like, is there a better...
He's up there.
Yeah, like maybe John Gibson, you could make an argument for that, but
yeah.
He's getting up there in age and whatnot. I think that, and especially considering his contract, like he's at, is it $2,750,000, something like that?
He is at, $725.
725.
725.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pennies on the dollar for a number one goaltender, and he's proven that he can be at least a 1B, maybe even a top goalie. And so if you can have him as a solid backup, like, he can be the kind of guy that pushes a team over the top, a team that's already, poised for a deep playoff run. And so I think he would be worth something at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that coin as well, he seems to love it in Utah, and he's probably poised for a pretty good payday if he stays. So
I was going to say, not to drag this on, but just about his payday as well. Like, I think I always think about it as like, does Utah want to re-sign him? Do they want him? But like, does Vejmelka want to play in Utah? He could. I think he has the confidence that he's like, I deserve a longer term and I deserve a little bit more money because I proved that I can be a starter. So I think that's going to be part of it too, where Vejmelka's no longer like trying to, prove that he should play for Utah and that they should want him. Like, he's a commodity around the league right now. So I think that will change the conversation too, that he has a lot of examples this season of why he either deserves a raise or longer term moving forward. Okay, this is running long, so I thought we could close it out. We're very sorry if we didn't get to your question. I will answer them next podcast, or maybe we'll do this again and we can answer the rest of them. But I thought this was a nice one to end on. I usually ask my guests what their favorite part of their job is. And JD Walker asked us, what's the best moment so far for each of you as members of the media coverage of the team? I love the coverage all of you provide for Utah Hockey Club. Thank you so much. So, guys, what is your favorite part of your job?
I like that.
Seeing all of you guys every day is my favorite job.
That's a good answer, Ryan.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fun to ride. I like riding. I like sports. It's fun.
I think it's cool that we get paid to watch hockey. I mean, that's all I've ever wanted to do anyway. If I couldn't get paid to play hockey, I wanted to get paid to watch hockey, and that's just it's really a dream job for me. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I kind of echo what Brogan said, and more specifically for me, is going to some of these just incredible hockey towns like New York. Sitting on press row at Madison Square Garden was unbelievable. Going to Pittsburgh and watching Sidney Crosby there and getting to talk to him, or going to Boston, like just going to these incredible places, and like Brogan said, getting paid to watch hockey, like it's a dream come true. And like Ryan said, like I just have so much fun with you guys all the time. Like it's a blast. So I mean, there's just so many reasons to love what we do.
Yeah, I echo what everyone said. I think it's really fun. I mean, honestly, half the fun of the games, like Cole and I sit next to each other on our assigned seats and we're just like chopping it up the whole game. And I think everyone feels the same. Like there's a select group of people that care and are as psycho enough about the NHL and covering hockey, and Ryan is one of those people now. Even we're switching his NBA heart to NHL, but I say as he shakes his head, but no, but I think it's really fun. Like obviously the job's fun and talking to the players and stuff, but just like I feel like we could get on here and talk for 3 hours if we had time. So that's a great part of it, and also like the community, the fans, the people that interact with our work. It's been really cool not being a Utah native. I know, Brogan, you probably feel the same way, and being welcomed into the little hockey community we have, and it's cool watching it grow. So yeah, not to get too sentimental at the end of the podcast, but thank you everyone for submitting questions, and thank all of you, Ryan, Brogan, and Cole, for coming on Inside the Club. I very much appreciate it. If everyone wants to go around and say where we can find your work or any last messages you have, please go ahead.
Read all about the Jazz trade deadline at KSL.com. Also some hockey news.
You can catch my stuff at DeseretNews.com or Deseret.com, I think it is. Just the Deseret News anyway.
Probably should figure that out.
Yeah.
Probably.
He's like something with Deseret in it.
Yeah.
I'm sure both of them go to the same place.
Yeah. My email is one and the site name is the other. So I always have to think about it. But Deseret.com, go there. And look at all the hockey stuff and all the other stuff too. There's lots of good stuff there.
Yeah, same thing, but KSLSports.com for everything that's been mentioned, and then you can follow me on X at KSL Sports.
Awesome, and I assume if you're listening to this podcast, the Tribune also has hockey coverage, so I will be there. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will talk to you next week.